it's PyramKing, and I'm really excited to bring another Curse of Strahd guide to you, and this time it's the Crossroads. Now before I get started, I have a couple special acknowledgments. First of all, to DM Andy, who is gracious enough to allow us to provide one of his gorgeous Curse of Strahd battle maps for our Foundry Adventure Packs for our Patreon members. And then also to Goliath Beetle, who had a really great post in Reddit, Magical Gothic Trinkets. A couple of those we're going to include in our guide here today. I've put a link also back to his great post in Reddit. Make sure to check that out. It has a lot of great ideas for Gothic trinkets. And of course, and most importantly, special thanks to my Patreon supporters. It's your support that allows me to put these PDF guides and these Foundry Adventure Packs together. Now, what is a Foundry Adventure Pack, you might be asking? If you're playing on the Foundry VTT virtual tabletop system, these are adventure packs that include the maps, the walls, the lights, roll tables, actors, journal entries, even soundtracks, and all the links back to D&D Beyond, in this case to Curse of Strahd. Of course, you're going to need to own Curse of Strahd on D&D Beyond for those links to work, but you can just download it, import it into Foundry, and away you go. So thanks again to my Patreon members. So let's jump into this guide right away. And before we do, I want to talk a little bit about the Crossroads and kind of this philosophy, or this thing that I always struggle with myself as a dungeon master. You know, we have our players are going from one location, an important location, to another, and there's this traveling in between. And usually we have this kind of generic roadmap, and we have a random encounter table, but it almost feels like this kind of force a little bit. And the random encounters a lot of times are just kind of bland, and they're just almost feel like this little obstacle in order to get to the next location. So when I saw in Curse of Strahd, they had this Crossroads location. They had a cemetery, a graveyard there, and the gallows. I go, man, there's so much we could do with this. Really feed into the entire Gothic horror, into the scene, a special event, maybe a random encounters that are just for this location. I thought it was great to kind of set the mood and the tone as they're traveling, kind of like their first big travel. They're leaving the village of Barovia, and they're heading to the Tser pools, or perhaps to Vallaki, depending on which fork of the road that they take. Now, before we get started, I just want to show one of James RPG's art's beautiful Theater of the Mind maps. This is an animated map. You can see the fog. There's a crow here. It's moving a little bit. I'll just zoom in. You can see this crow over here. I love his animated maps. If I was playing on the tabletop, I'd have this on a TV or a big screen, big monitor, to kind of set the atmosphere. And I use these, his maps, his Theater of the Mind maps, as Theater of the Mind maps in my game, so that, maybe it's just a scene, it's a common frame of reference. It works really well in Foundry. So anyway, let's jump right into the battle map, this gorgeous battle map that's designed by DM Andy. I love his attention to detail. Now, there's a link down below to DM Andy's Patreon. Every one of his battle maps, he has several different flavors. One's with grids, one that without grids. He has fog on some of them, day and night scenes. For the ones that I use in Foundry and in my Foundry Adventure Packs, I always use the fogless, gridless day ones, because Foundry allows us to introduce night and change the darkness level, introduce our own fog, and I don't like to have grids on my map. That's just my personal preference. I do want to show you two things I did in this map. This is just a little Foundry tip, very small. I put in a light source here, and on this particular light source, I turned off the bright light radius, just the dim light radius. I did it a really dark blue, ghostly light, slow animation. And what I wanted to do is kind of light up the road and the gallows and a little graveyard over there with this kind of ghostly light, as if the moon is trying to push its way through the clouds and through the mist. So you can see it kind of slowly changing this kind of blue thing, and it lends itself to the atmosphere. The other thing that, and you can easily just turn this off by just right-clicking on it and turning it back on. The other thing I wanted to show you, I don't usually show modules, but I thought this Crossroads scene is just perfect for this module, is FX Master. I'll put a link down at the bottom of it, and it allows you to add fog and crows. You can see these crows flying around in here, and I have a little bit of fog slowly moving in through here. It really adds to the atmosphere. So with that lighting, the FX Master, you have this awesome atmosphere. Now, you can probably hear in the background some crows. That's the Crows soundtrack. I've put that in here. It's playing right now in the background. So let's go ahead and just jump into this guide, shall we? Now, what I did with this guide is I have one special event and 4 random encounters. 3 of the random encounters are unique to this location. So when the players get here, I have a little flavored text. I have a link back to D&D Beyond if you want to go back to D&D Beyond. Actually, they have not even it's like a half page covering this location. It's kind of disappointing, actually. So I kind of fleshed it out and made it a little bit more than that. But if you want to use their flavor text, it's available there if you have D&D Beyond Curse of Strahd. But I added my own in here. Now, before we do the special event comes at the end of the scene when they're leaving. You're going to have one of these 4 random encounters, and one of them will happen. You're just going to decide which one. You can just click on this. If you do have the Foundry Adventure Pack, you can just click and roll, and it will automatically select one for you. So let's go through each of these random encounters. So the first random encounter we're going to talk about is the Grave Robbers. Now, the Grave Robber encounter is going to start off as you approach, you see 2 figures up in digging up one of the graves. They take notice of you and seem kind of defensive. One of them yells out, "Oh, move along. There's no interest here." Now, what happens is going on with these grave robbers here, and we're going to go up to the grave and we'll put them in there. I didn't mean to delete the grave robber thing. There's 2 grave robbers, so we're just going to drop the 2 grave robbers. I already have the actors here. Here they are, the grave robbers. They're over in here. These goofy grave robbers. Now, a little backstory on the grave robbers. The 2 grave robbers are stealing body parts. They heard the Count was buying body parts for an experiment. The 2 grave robbers are kind of defensive. They know they shouldn't be doing it. They're not going to attack the players. They're simply poor scavengers looking to make a little bit of coin. Now, this story thread ties back to my alternative version of Death House, the Count's Manor and the Count's Crypt. If you did run those or are going to run those, the Count he's building the Frankenstein monster in his crypt, and he has some people robbing graves, and obviously these 2 scavengers heard about it. They're just trying to rob some body parts and make probably a little bit of money off of it. Now, as your players are talking to them and you're developing this little role-playing encounter, the grave they've just dug up, the remains of the grave, it's a skeleton. It's going to immediately come to life, and you're going to begin a combat encounter. Now, this is kind of an awkward, I'm just going to put the skeleton here, an awkward combat encounter, because the skeleton's going to immediately attack the 2 grave robbers. And this puts your players in kind of this moral predicament. They're in a combat encounter. The skeleton's not attacking them. It's attacking the 2 grave robbers. Do they come to the aid of the 2 grave robbers and attack the skeleton, helping the grave robbers, or do they let the grave robbers try to deal with it on its own? Now, obviously, if the skeleton overpowers the 2 grave robbers, the skeleton's going to move on and attack the party members. So this adds this kind of interesting role-playing element to the combat encounters. Will the grave robbers be grateful for your help? Who knows? That's up to you, the DM, the context you want to run this scenario. It adds just a unique moral flavor and role-playing twist to this combat encounter. Now, the next encounter here, random encounter, I'll delete these guys, is also happening in the graveyard, and this is The Dead Will Rise. As you pass the grave stars, you'll notice a sound emanating from the small graveyard. As you look closer, you see undead hands digging up through the earth. It's zombies. Now, what I wanted to do with this zombie encounter is allow the DM to control the pacing and control the balance of the encounter. So I introduced this mechanic. It's a wave mechanic where waves of zombies will come, but you'll control the waves and the element. So at the beginning of your first round of combat, you're going to roll a 1d4 to determine how many zombies come. I'm just going to drag some zombies in here. And, you know, we'll just do it for fun. We're just going to, let me just clear this out. I'm going to just roll a 1d4. Let's try that out. 1d4, determine how many zombies. And we got 3 zombies. So you're going to drag out 3 of your zombies in here in the graveyard. They're going to come out and start attacking your players. These are just normal zombies. Now, when you do this first round, at the beginning of your next round, you're going to roll that 1d4 again, and another wave of zombies are going to come. Now, this is an important element as you as the DM. What my personal opinion is, you want to keep encounters balanced, right? Maybe you're into balanced encounters and want to balance it out. But you want your players to feel off balance. You want to put your players on the back foot. You want them to feel stressful. You want them to continue to give them this feeling of unknown, unsurety. Now, let's say I rolled a 4 and I got 4 zombies attacking my party, and I have a small party of 4 and they're overwhelmed. At the beginning of the second round, I might not roll again for more zombies. They're already overwhelmed. I'm letting them deal with these zombies. Or perhaps I rolled a 1 on my here, and I've got a party of 6, and they're easily able to dispatch this one zombie. I'm going to roll again on my beginning of my second round to determine if another waves of zombies come. Now, this allows you to roll every round or every other round. You get to control the pacing of this. I would have at least 2 rounds, maybe 3 or 4 rounds of zombies, depending on the D4, the outcome of the D4. Or you might want to just skip around to kind of like the players like, oh, thankfully no more zombies are coming. And then round 3, all of a sudden, more zombies come. Again, what makes for exciting and challenging combat is not the fact that your players are fighting zombies, is the unknown element. Are more zombies coming? When are they coming? How many more are coming? It's that unknown level that creates the stress that amps up the combat encounter. So while this seems like a simple combat encounter, the element of creating waves and rolling that die, determine how many come, or not rolling it depending on what's going on, creates this kind of this feeling of off balance, putting the characters on the back foot, making them feel what's going on here. I don't know what to expect next. I'm dealing with one zombie, are more coming? All those elements, add to this complexity layer of feeling and emotion, making them, raising their feelings up and feeling elated that they've, killed a zombie, and then more fear as more zombies come. That's the feeling, the element that you want to add to this combat encounter. Okay, now random encounter. Let's get rid of these zombies. Random encounter number 3 is a role-playing encounter that could become combat, and that's called Hang the Witch. So we're going to go down here to the gallows section in here, and this is what's going to happen. The players approach. You notice a group of 6 villagers yelling, "Hang her! Hang the witch! Hang her!" In the midst of the villagers is a hooded figure. Her arms are tied behind her back, and she's being led up to the gallows. So let's drop these characters in here. We've got some Barovian villagers here. There's 5 of them. So we're just going to scatter them here. We've got 4. And then you always have that one kind of oddball, right? He's unsure, right? He's unsure if they should be killing her or not. And then we have the leader of the group. His name is Dorvak. And we're going to put him up on the scaffolding. Dorvak, by the way, stat block is a bandit. The rest of the villagers are commoners. So there he is. He's on the top of the scaffolding facing the villagers. And then you have Celia, who is the hooded girl up there. Now let's read a little bit about the backstory so you understand what's going on here. There are 5 villagers and 1 leader. The villagers believe the young woman is a witch who has been casting spells on the local villagers. She's actually just an herbalist. She is not a witch. The villagers are afraid of Strahd. They believe by hanging this witch, they might be able to buy some goodwill from Strahd, as she could be an enemy of Strahd, who knows. The villagers only suspect she is a witch. They have no proof other than the fact that she dabbles in herbs, and some strange things have been happening to the local villagers in Barovia. They're looking for someone to blame, and they found her as a scapegoat. Now, her name is Celia, and there she is. With the burgomaster, as you found out, in the village of Barovia now dead, and there's little trust or faith in his son Ismark to rule over the village, the villagers taking policing the village on their own, and the leader's name is Dorvak, and he's the one that's kind of instigated this witch hunt, if you will. Now, this allows for some interesting role-playing elements. The players may wish to try to convince Dorvak and the villagers that she's not a witch, they should let her go, or it can turn into a combat encounter. Now, your party probably doesn't want to kill a bunch of innocent villagers, and pretty much they are innocent. I mean, it's Dorvak that's kind of led this charge and convinced them. You even have this one villager that's kind of like, well, I'm not too sure about this over here. And in a combat encounter, maybe they just want to, attack Dorvak. Maybe if they kill him or subdue him, the other villagers scatter. If they do rescue her, if they take her to the village of the Vistani camp at the Tser pools, the Vistani will welcome her in open arms, protect her from the villagers. She'll have a place to stay, so that she has a place to go for safety. Or there's the third options. They ignore the situation, or they participate and let her hang. Now, if they go with the third options, my recommendation as a dungeon master would be, I would visit their dreams over the next several nights, with some nightmares and some uncertainty, some feeling of dread and guilt. Was she an herbalist? Was she innocent? Should I have let her die? Was there something I could have done? You know, again, this is adding that flavor of dread to the atmosphere. This is a Gothic horror game. This is not the typical kind of fantasy adventure. This is domains of dread. You're in Barovia. This place is, you know, macabre, dark. Okay, let's go on to the next encounter here. Let me get these guys out of here. The next encounter is my favorite, and that is the Ghost Knight. Now, if you're familiar with Curse of Strahd, there's a random encounter table, and they have this skeletal rider that just kind of shows up. I thought, boy, this is awesome. We should really flesh this out. Attach it to a location, give it a little bit backlore. And this one encounter of the four, you're going to incorporate throughout Barovia. And I'll tell you why and how later. So let's read about the encounter first. So you hear the ghostly sounds of battle. Actually, I do have some ghostly sounds of battle. Let's click that in so you can hear it. So you should hear a little bit of ghostly sounds of battle in the background. You hear these ghostly sounds of battle. Appearing from the mist, you see a ghostly knight riding, carrying a banner on what appears to be an undead horse. He comes to a stop, stares at you, slowly pointing the banner in a direction. Is it a warning? A calling? The ghostly knight slowly raises the banner, grabs the reins, and rides off at a quickening pace. As they do, you notice something fall to the ground. So here, let me stop this battle music here. So let's talk about this ghostly rider. So down here in the DM notes is a little backstory of what's going on. So the ghostly knight was one of the knights of the Silver Dragon of Argynvost, and its last mission was to raise the banner to call forces, marshaling forces to aid the knights against this battle against the Dark Lord. Now, the ghostly knight will always point the banner in the direction of Argynvost, and what he's doing is he's kind of trying to steer the player, saying, we need aid. There's a battle going on against the Dark Lord. So he's trying to steer people to go to Argynvost. That's where the war is. Now, the knight does not know that the battle was lost long ago, and it's on this haunted mission for centuries. It's stuck in this kind of purgatory, riding throughout Barovia, trying to find people, martial forces to ride to aid of the Knights of Argynvost. The ghost will always drop a trinket after it leaves, a magic trinket, which we'll cover. It's pretty cool here. So you can see now, while you want to maybe add this random encounter perhaps between the windmill and Vallaki, or between Vallaki and the Wizard's Tower in Kresk, or one of the roads on there. Now you can do it as a random encounter, or you can pre-plan to use this encounter somewhere sparingly in there. Now, if the players take an insight check and they're successful, they'll note that the rider's dressed in some old plate mail armor that's from long ago. The banner, while in tatters, has a symbol of a dragon on it. The horse is undead. Pieces of its flesh are falling away and revealing bone. The stat block of the ghostly knight is the Phantom Warrior. Now, this is a link right back to D&D Beyond. This is a creature from Curse of Strahd, so obviously you would need to own Curse of Strahd at D&D Beyond to access this particular stat block. But he's also in here in the Foundry block right here. Let's just drag him out here. I made a really nice little token for him too. He's riding, by the way, a warhorse. Warhorse skeleton. Now, if the players decide to enter into combat, the rider will defend itself, but will attempt to leave. It's not going to engage. It doesn't care about fighting the players. It's on this My Epic mission it's been on for centuries. It needs to find people to come to the aid of the battle at Argynvost, even though it hasn't happened. I mean, it happened hundreds of years ago, and obviously they were defeated by the Dark Lord Strahd. It just doesn't know this. It's riding in this ghostly purgatory lap throughout Barovia. Now, what's cool is the ghostly trinkets. It has 6 trinkets, different trinkets. Each one of these trinkets has an effect. So let's take a look at it. There's a whole roll table here for the 6 trinkets. Let's look at each of those trinkets. I'm just going to bring this all over here and kind of put it over here. Let's get our guys so we can take a look at them. And let's take a look at the first trinket here, shall we? It's the bone dice. So if he drops the bone dice once per day, you get to roll the bone dice. It's a D20 roll, and whatever the outcome of the roll, you just put that in your back pocket. You get to keep that for the day. Now, in a D20 roll on the day, you can replace it with the results of your bone dice roll. It could be an attack roll, it could be a saving throw roll, it could be a abilities check, any d20, you can replace it with the result from your bone dice. Now, obviously, if you roll in the morning a 1, 2, or 3, probably, it's probably going to be you're never going to want to use a 1. However, imagine in the morning if you rolled a 20. You get to put that in your back pocket. And if you have a combat encounter later in the day, that's an instant crit. You can just say, I'm replacing this roll with my bone dice roll. I got a crit, and boom, you've got a crit. So this bone dice is a really cool little mechanic thing to have. If he drops his trinket, you're going to be pretty happy. Okay, the next one is the dagger called the Night Stalker. This is a normal dagger, 1d4 piercing damage, but it does an additional 1d4 radiant damage to vampires. And that fits really well with a dagger. I mean, if you're in combat, you can just whip out this dagger, chuck it at a vampire, and it's going to not only do the piercing damage, but it's going to do additional 1d4 radiant damage. So it's a dagger that obviously one of the Knights of Argynvost would probably have if it's been battling, for centuries these vampires. So it's the Night Stalker blade. The next one is a really cool one too. It's the Knight's Locket, a small silver locket. Each time you view the picture in the locket, the portrait changes. Once a day, you can cast the disguise self as the person in the locket. So this is kind of a fun little trinket. This idea actually came from Goliath Beetle's post in Reddit in there. Just a really fun, interesting Gothic horror trinket to stick on here. The next one is the Morning Lord candle. The candle of the Morning Lord, when you light this candle, the holder of the candle will be allowed to cast Turn Undead once per day. Now, you must be holding the candle. It must be lit first, and then once it's lit first, you can use an action to cast Turn Undead once. So obviously you're going to have to light it first. But this is, obviously there's going to be situations where you're going to want to turn some undead here in Barovia. Another cool trinket. The next one is the Necklace of Chain Links. Now, this requires attunement, and it cannot be worn by Paladin or Cleric. So if you're Paladin or Cleric, it's not going to help you out. However, if you are anything but a Paladin and Cleric and you wear this necklace, you can cast one Cleric cantrip once per day. So this is an interesting necklace because if you don't have a Cleric in your party, this is going to allow somebody to have some very limited, once per day, one Cleric cantrip. Really cool trinket. And then last but not least, we have the Signet Ring of the Sun. Once per day, the wearer of this can cast a light spell. So each of these trinkets really fit within this domain of dread of Barovia. It kind of fits in with the flavor of this Gothic horror flavor, and each one of them is useful to the players in some form or fashion. And I think this is a really, really fun encounter with the ghostly knight and him dropping the trinket and kind of steering the players towards Argynvost. So it's a way to kind of get those players towards Argynvost. Now, once you've completed one of these 4 random encounters, let's get rid of him. We're going to talk about the special event. Here we go, the special event. Now, as the players are leaving this area, they're probably going to be heading northwest to Tser Pools or southwest towards Vallaki and Ravenloft. You're going to have this special event. And what you're going to do is you're going to have all the players roll a wisdom saving throw. The lowest score is going to be cursed with a hanged one, and you're going to read them this flavored text. You hear a noise that catches your attention. You turn to see a body hanging from the gallows. Your eyes widen in horror as you realize it's yourself. A feeling of dread pours over you. You turn away, unable to shake the image from your mind. Now, this player is now cursed, and this is how the curse works. At the beginning of each combat encounter, at the very start, you're going to read, when it's their turn, their first turn and their first turn only, you're going to say, the vision of yourself hanging from the gallows fills your mind and sends a shiver up your spine. You wonder if this will be your last moment. You hesitate briefly. Now, right after you read this, and it's their first turn, they're going to roll disadvantage on their attack roll or disadvantage on their spellcast roll. Now, if they do land a blow, rolling disadvantage, you're going to read this flavored text. You shake away the feeling and muster inner strength, and you tell yourself, not today. And that hit, if they're successful, is an automatic crit. That's right. So I wanted to create this kind of this atmosphere, this feeling, this kind of dreaded curse. But if they are able to marshal some inner strength, some fortitude, some some metal against this feeling of dread, and they land that hit, it's an automatic crit. I mean, imagine it. It's like you're having this feeling. It's like, oh, this could be my last moment on this mortal plane. And then you're successful with your blow, like with your battle axe, with your sword, and you're just going to freaking crit because you're just so like, not today, I'm not going to die today. So I wanted to add this kind of role-playing element to it. It's got this, this is an emotional roller coaster. Your player's going to go, shit, I got to roll, on my first attack roll, I'm seeing this vision of myself, I roll disadvantage, and then all of a sudden they hit, and they're going to feel elated because it's like a crit. So this is this emotional roller coaster. It's really fun for Gothic horror. It's gonna, it's gonna change this atmosphere and feeling. They're gonna be so excited when they hit on a disadvantage that they automatically crit. Now this is a curse. It can be removed by remove curse or greater restoration or a similar spell. And just just up the road at the Tser pools is Madame Ava in the Vistani camp, and she has greater restoration. So she could possibly, you could talk to her, maybe negotiate with her. She could remove curse, or perhaps the abbot and Kresk or some other NPC could remove the curse if you don't have these spells. But I wanted to, this is Gothic horror. This is typical fantasy. I wanted to put in some feelings of dread, some helplessness, some curses, making this feel kind of, scary. Make the players, knock them down just a little bit. Don't let them feel so, powerful. Let them know that you're in this place that you don't know what's around each corner. You don't know if one of these trinkets is cursed or something's going to happen to you. And that was kind of the whole atmosphere of this. Well, I hope you like this guide. Thanks again. Big thanks to DM Andy for allowing us to use this map. Thanks again to my Patreon members. A huge thank you to you. If you're interested in the PDF guide or you want the Foundry Adventure Pack to this, click on my Patreon link below. Don't forget to hit the like button, give me a big thumbs up, and subscribe if you like this. And until next time, may all your rolls be critically successful.